The motion is adopted.
The federal government is back open for business.
Let's be clear, there are no winners here. These last few weeks have inflicted completely unnecessary damage on our economy.
While there were no winners in the shutdown, some Republicans are now pointing the finger of blame at each other.
Had Senate Republicans united and supported House Republicans, the outcome of this, I believe, would have been very, very different.
This debate has been changed from Republican versus Democrat/Obama to Republican versus Republican. And that cannot be helpful to the Republican Party. This infighting is harming the Republican Party.
One Central Ohio Republican trying to referee the fight is Congressman Pat Tiberi. He's our newsmaker coming up.
It's been 2 weeks since the healthcare exchange opened, but the main website continues to be plagued with problems. Now, some are calling on the Secretary of Health and Human Services to step down.
I don't think there's any question. I would have loved a much smoother website start.
Coming up, we'll hear from Kathleen Sibelius.
And it will be a very big week for Medicaid expansion in Ohio. Could it just be a day away from approval? Joe Hallett from the Columbus Dispatch will fill us in.
Strategists Bob Clegg and Dale Butland are here to debate the top political topics of the week, plus our Game of the Day NFL picks.
All coming up on Capitol Square. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Jim Heath. Tracy will join us in just a moment. But first, it was quite a week up on Capitol Hill. A vote in the House at the last possible moment averted the nation from being unable to pay all of its bills, and it ended that government shutdown. The previous sequester, however, remains in effect. The president said there were no winners, but clearly the polling shows that a majority of Americans blamed Republicans for the chaos. And the internal debate over tactics employed by the GOP has started. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Pat Tiberi from Ohio's 12th District. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning.
We should explain, maybe point out your hand right away. Did you hit a wall during all of this?
No.
Did you punch a wall?
No, that'd be a better story, but no. A little Hartford Fair in Lincoln County in August, I tore ligaments and broke my wrist.
Oh, but getting better on the mend.
Getting better, yes.
Well, let's start at the beginning here. I mean, how many, as far as the tactics go, how many Republicans were arguing against the tactics of a shutdown in the initial stage before it all started?
Well, about half. The leadership currently, they to use a football analogy, they believed we were Florida A&M going against Ohio State on a football Saturday with this strategy, a strategy that you can't win in the end, and that is Obamacare. You're not going to defund Obamacare. What would have been a better strategy was to delay it, but a majority of our guys said, hey, we want to try to go in on a defund strategy, and that's where the leadership took us. But I will tell you this, the difficulty and the frustration on my part is there's a lot of blame to go around, as the president said, and I could blame Ted Cruz's strategy, as I have, because you can't defund Obamacare. Expectations are out there that you can't. But the president did not negotiate, would not negotiate at all. It's all optics.
But is that
and
fair?
That's what
because
united
once
us.
You attached,
it's very fair.
Once you attached Obamacare to it,
right.
I mean, we did have a national referendum on that issue and others last November. He won re-election.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, when Ted Cruz says, look, this deal is going to have to include the funding of Obamacare, the president's signature legislation.
No.
Then right out of the gate, it's a no deal.
But there's a negotiation process. My 10-year-old daughter understands that you can't defund Obamacare because you have to have 67 votes to override the veto of a president by the name of Obama. At the same time, my daughter understands we have divided government, and that means you need to negotiate. Harry Reid refused to negotiate. Jim, we passed 4 bills in July and June to fund parts of the government. The Senate never took it up. We passed 4 more bills, 3 of which had nothing to do with defunding Obamacare. Funded all of government, included bipartisan things like a 21 Senate Democrats who wanted to repeal the medical device tax. Other Senate Democrats wanted to delay, but they got Harry Reid to not negotiate with us. He just cut their legs out from under them. So that's not the system that we have.
So as the dust settles here a few days after this vote, you heard Ted Cruz just a second ago saying, look, if we Senate Republicans had stuck with the House, you've got John McCain saying we're now fighting each other. I mean, what happens here?
Well, Ted Cruz is running for president, so he has a Ted Cruz strategy about running for president and winning a Republican nomination.
So did the shutdown benefit him?
Oh, I think in a primary it would benefit him, sure, in Iowa and New Hampshire, and I'm not an expert in Iowa and New Hampshire, but you could ask Joe Howlett that question. But the bottom line is, this isn't about just Ted Cruz. The dysfunction in Washington is much broader than Ted Cruz. Remember when George Bush was president, you had liberal Democrats not only not acknowledge that he was president, but think that he was part of the 9/11 conspiracy. So we have it on both sides of the aisle, and the president has been MIA, missing in action on actually negotiating. Even Leon Panetta, his former defense secretary, said that this last week.
So now you have Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate, saying, I won't kick that mule again, his words, to use a Kentucky analogy, that the government shutdown cannot happen again. Is there a similar guarantee that you're hearing in the House?
Here's the frustration that's been missed in national reporting. It's not about Obamacare. Yeah, it's about it in a way, because it is a disaster, and I believe that the administration will ultimately delay it for a year, quietly, like they did the employer mandate after 2 weeks of saying no, 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 no earlier this year. But here's the issue. We have a fiscal crisis in this country. We are being led down a hole that my kids will not be able to have the same America that you and I have. This president will not negotiate on any grounds, and Harry Reid will not negotiate on any grounds. This is bigger. And that's the fight.
In that answer,
Jim.
then, the Mitch McConnell. So is that the loophole then that come January we might find ourselves right back?
We are
in the middle
trying
of this?
every responsible way to get them to come to the table. The president's been about optics and not about reality, because he thinks he can take the House back. And this is about the last 2 years for him being like the first 2 years. And at some point in time, when he decides they can't take the House, then I hope we can get the big deal done.
You know, in the middle of all of this, the one thing I reported on the first day of the exchange when it opened up a couple weeks ago, and interviewed a woman who was trying to get on, had waited to be eligible for insurance for 9 years now. She has a small business, very disappointed, very frustrated that she could not get on to the healthcare exchange. Do you look at in reality, had the shutdown not occurred, that probably would have been the focus on Obamacare, and the reality of that website that was falling probably would have been center stage.
Many of us argue that internally.
So did that fight, I mean, were you having that fight all along, or once you started this strategy and the government shut down, did you feel like as a team player that was the strategy and that's what it was going to be?
The speaker is in the minority, right? He's got to negotiate with 2 other people. We are not in the minority. We do control 1 House. And so when the play was called, because the majority of our members wanted to do this first, then we as a team, unified, are much stronger than we're divided, right? And so at the end of the day, you saw all this splintering because we had a lot of different ideas on tactics.
Is that Tea Party caucus, are they manageable going forward?
They're not monolithic. I mean, they're not monolithic at all. There are members of the Tea Party caucus, by the way, who said defund was crazy. The defund strategy was not the right strategy. So what Ted Cruz was able to do is convince a lot of Americans, a majority of Republicans.
How did a freshman senator do that?
He did it with the help of some outside groups on the right. And they just raised expectations to levels that were just not manageable. And so it's hard to tell people that, hey, you can't win this game, because you've got people that are like senators and other groups, established groups, that said, yes, you can, if you can hold together. And my question, if Senator Cruz was sitting across from me, was, if 46 Republicans can stand together and win, how does that add up to 67? It doesn't. It doesn't even add up to 50. That's the difficulty.
Congressman, we're out of time, but let me just ask you, do you see him front and center as we get into the new year and we perhaps face this challenge again?
You know, I'm hoping that a majority of us now, because I think there is a majority of us in the House now that believe the strategy was wrong, and there wasn't at the beginning, by the way. And I think thinking with that and senators, we can convince the American people and Republicans and conservatives and Tea Party folks that defunding isn't going to happen. You need to win elections.
Congressman, good to see you.
Thank you.
As always. And get that hand healed quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's been a lot of criticism, as we all know, directed at the healthcare exchange. Earlier this week, the Secretary of Health and Human Services was in Columbus to answer some questions about its rollout, and Tracy sat down with Kathleen Sibelius and asked her first how many Ohioans have signed up.
We
are going to be collecting nationwide enrollment numbers and putting them out once a month. And they're coming from the call center, from healthcare.gov, and from paper applications. So at the end of the month, we'll be putting out our first enrollment numbers. But I would say what I'm hearing on the ground here in Ohio, and I was in Cincinnati yesterday and here in Columbus today, is the level of interest is tremendous. People want information. They are looking at plans, comparing prices, and then making a financial decision that works for them and their families. And I think that's a very good way to approach this.
You don't have hard numbers just yet?
No, we'll be doing that at the end of the month.
And how helpful has Ohio been in getting the exchanges up and rolling? And I ask because I know that the insurance commissioner has come onto our show and she's not been a supporter of Obamacare.
Well, Ohio decided a year ago that they would not run their own marketplace. They're part of the federal marketplace. So we have Ohio plans that are offered to citizens here, but the federal government is actually running the program here in Ohio. What we're seeing, Tracy, is a lot of states who weren't quite ready to do their own markets, who are in partnership with us and probably will take over their marketplaces as we go into year 2, and that's available to any state. I think that health insurance is often a local product. It's local networks and pharmacies, and the more the state is involved and engaged, the better off the folks are.
What's your reaction to some of the coverage that the plan has gotten? I mean, it's certainly been overshadowed by the partial government shutdown and some of the glitches. I mean, are you disappointed at the way this got started?
Well, I don't think there's any question. I would have loved a much smoother website start. The website wasn't prepared to accept the millions of people who tried to access it at the very beginning, and that's unfortunate. What I want to make sure people understand is we have a 26-week open enrollment period, 6 months of opportunity. The product will be there, insurance policies. The prices are locked in, so not getting to apply day one hasn't been a detriment. And in fact, if people sign up by December 15th, they will have their policy start on the first possible day, which is January 1st.
And before we let you go, you said that Medicaid expansion, which looks like it's going to happen in our state, is going to be a good thing, beneficial to Ohioans.
Well, I don't think there's any question that part of the Affordable Care Act is also offering to states around the country that if they expand Medicaid to a level that is uniform around the country, so living in Ohio won't be different than living in Kentucky or being in Indiana in terms of Medicaid coverage, that the federal government will actually pay for 100% of the newly insured population for the first 3 years, and then gradually decrease that, but never pay less than 90% over a 10-year period of time. For Ohio, $26 billion would come to the state in the first 5 years to pay for the cost of those uninsured Ohioans. And that means that great hospital systems like Ohio State University System, Children's Hospital, others here, won't continue to bear the cost of uncompensated care. Those dollars can be dedicated to providing additional health services. They'll have more paying customers. Families will be more prosperous. People won't be bankrupt because they go sick. And I think it is a very beneficial plan for the state of Ohio.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Great to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Thank you, Tracy. Up next, tomorrow could be a very big day for supporters of Medicaid expansion in Ohio, but conservatives say they'll try to block it, maybe in court. Joe Hallett from the Columbus Dispatch is here to discuss it. We'll be right back.